is Don Lemon tonight, and this really hasn't been a good 24 hours for Donald Trump, in large part because of this. But first of all, because his handpicked special master basically told him to put up or shut up. Now a federal appeals court is calling out his legal team for refusing to provide a shred of evidence for his claims that he declassified documents found in the search of Mar-a-Lago. So they're allowing the Justice Department to continue looking at those documents, pending a trial judge's, I should say, order that the review be blocked, or block the review. And first on CNN, a source says that Ginny Thomas, a conservative activist of the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, agreeing to talk to the January 6th committee in the coming weeks. And don't forget that massive lawsuit against the former president, 3 of his adult children, and the Trump Organization, alleging that their whole business is essentially a giant fraud. That's what these documents say. That's what they allege. Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, says that the fraud was, and I quote here, approved at the highest levels of the Trump Organization, including by Mr. Trump himself. She alleges that Eric Trump, Ivanka Trump, and Donald Trump Jr. knowingly participated in the fraudulent schemes. She says Trump and his company lied more than 200 times about the value of his assets, and she is seeking $250 million, that's billion with a B, in allegedly ill-gotten funds, as well as seeking to bar the Trumps from ever running a business in the state again. And the former president denies any wrongdoing and accuses the Attorney General, a Democrat, of a political vendetta. There is a lot to get to in the coming hours here on CNN. So I want to get straight to CNN's justice correspondent, Jessica Schneider, CNN's senior legal analyst, Laura Coates. Good evening to both of you. Thank you so much, Jessica, for the reporting. The appeals court allowing the Justice Department to resume their review of these classified documents. What can you tell us? What do you know about it?
Yeah, Don, this was a unanimous 3-judge panel, notably with 2 Trump appointees, and they gave DOJ what the prosecutors there have been asking for repeatedly over the past week plus. So now DOJ will be allowed to resume using those 100 classified documents that the FBI seized from Mar-a-Lago in their search just about a month ago. They can use it now in their ongoing investigation. This has been a huge point of contention for prosecutors because the lower court judge, Eileen Cannon, she had halted their use of these classified records, meaning they couldn't use it for grand jury purposes or with witnesses. Now they can. And the appeals court stressed here when they sided with DOJ that really it could harm the country if investigators couldn't use that material. Here's what they said in part. It is self-evident that the public has a strong interest in ensuring that the storage of the classified records did not result in exceptionally grave damage to the national security. Ascertaining that necessarily involves reviewing the documents, determining who had access to them and when, and deciding which, if any, sources or methods are compromised. The court there saying DOJ needed to look at those documents, and now DOJ does have the green light to resume using them, all while the special master, meanwhile, and Trump's legal team, they will no longer have access to these classified documents. That was really the second thing that DOJ asked for. So a big win tonight for DOJ at the 11th Circuit, Don.
Okay, so Laura, listen, all of this was because, the Team Trump wanted a special master, blah, 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 so on and so on and so on. So what impact does the DOJ appeal have on what the special master is deciding now?
Well, it's limiting now. I mean, that Tina Turner song, What's Love's Got to Do with It, Don? Now it's a matter of what is the classified documents? What do those have to do with your discussions about what might be privileged documents? That's essentially what the appeals court said. You've got these 100 documents that are about classified materials, have these various labels on them that say that, look, you're not supposed to look at this. By allowing a special master or anyone to see it, but under the pretext of, I'm looking for privileged documents, you're going to allow people who don't otherwise have a clearance or otherwise authorized to see what can be the most sensitive information now see it. So now the special master is limited in that. Another part of that, though, when you think about the classified documents, a lot of this is a self-inflicted wound from the Trump legal team and Donald Trump himself by speaking out in public, talking about the possibility that he has declassified documents. When it came to actually backing that up in a courtroom yesterday in that special master, they didn't do so. And that was taken into account today by the 11th Circuit two of whom Jessica said were actual Trump appointees. One was an Obama appointee that essentially said, when you had a chance to talk to us about what the classified documents or had to do with your particular role, you didn't do anything. And that was used against them now.
Jessica, this now prevents, in my understanding is that it prevents Team Trump or Trump's team from seeing the records with classification markings, correct?
It does, exactly. It prevents Trump's legal team, as well as the special master, as Laura was getting to, from seeing the classified documents. And Laura mentioned it. You know, what was interesting was that yesterday's hearing before the special master, Trump's team had argued that they needed to see the classified documents to determine which ones Trump had potentially declassified. And that was another area where the 11th Circuit called out Trump's legal team. You know, they said that so far, Trump's legal team has refused to present any evidence at all that Trump declassified any of these documents. You know, plus the 11th Circuit made one more point that Trump just has no claim at all to any of these classified documents, writing, "For our part, we cannot discern why plaintiff would have an individual interest in or need for any of the 100 documents with classification markings. Classified documents are marked to show they are classified, for instance, with their classification level." So all in all, this was in a 29-page decision here, and it went point by point to take down Trump's legal team's arguments on just about every level here. So now the question is, what does Trump's team do next? Do they appeal to the Supreme Court?
Okay, well, it appears, Laura, that the Supreme Court, that's going to be their only recourse, right? Because there was some question about whether there could be an en banc review, this new term that I'm learning, to the 11th Circuit. And that does not apply under these circumstances, correct? Is that the way you read it?
Right. I mean, first of all, you have a full appellate court, the circuit court, but you only have several of them at a time who listen to cases in order to expedite the review of matters. As opposed to waiting for everyone to hear a matter, they have different three judge panels that will review different cases. This was one such issue. If an en banc decision was rendered, that means they want to go to the entirety of the circuit court. They want to hear from everyone having to weigh in, have a majority ruling on that. But normally you can do that, except for now there's a new rule as of this year in the 11th Circuit that says if it's what's called an interim order or an order from a stay, which is what the DOJ asked for, a limited review that says, I'd like you to put a pin in a particular aspect of a lower court's ruling. I don't want to have to follow that order in a very discreet and confined way, a stay the way it was before the judge ruled anything, a stay. If it's that, then you cannot then go to the rest of the 11th Circuit. Your recourse is only to the Supreme Court of the United States. And if passed right now immediately as prologue, the fact that you have really a majority of the 11th Circuit as Trump appointees, two of the three who heard this appointees, even though there are Trump appointees, obviously, and nominees in the Supreme Court, it's pretty clear cut when there's a national security interest at stake that it's unlikely to change, even if they were to appeal to the Supreme Court. But stranger things have happened.
Stranger things have happened. You said a mouthful there. True enough. Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate it.